I'm going to teach you the best ways that I have found to learn to draw, so you'll always know what to practice, in what order to practice things, and how to improve. One of the most common questions I get from students is how they should learn to draw. Where do you start? What should you practice? And how do you make that practice really matter? I see so many students starting off with subjects that are far beyond their current skill level, and what happens is they tend to get frustrated and often quit. Or they end up with bad drawing habits that take years or even a lifetime to get rid of. Although there is no concrete right or wrong way to learn to draw, there are certainly better and worse ways. Before I started teaching drawing online, I worked with thousands of students in face-to-face classes. I tested nearly every kind of drawing instruction I could find. And at this point, I have a very strong sense of what works, what's connecting with students, what's allowing them to build skills quickly. So here we go. Here is the best way that I have found to learn to draw. The first thing you need to do is get good at drawing basic shapes, like circles, ovals, and straight edge shapes, like rectangles and triangles. Now, people often want to skip these simple shapes and move on to more challenging subjects. But it's critical to remember, no matter how complex your subject is, it must first be understood in terms of basic shapes. And ask yourself this: if you struggle to draw a simple shape, like an oval or a rectangle, how can you expect to draw more complex subjects? The reality is that every subject will simplify down to circles, ovals, rectangles, and triangles. The better you can draw these basic shapes, the more successful your finished drawings will be later down the road. You want to get so good at these basic shapes that they become second nature. These basic shapes are the building blocks of more complex form. Now, one of the most important skills in drawing is creating the illusion of three-dimensional form in deep space on the flat surface of the page. Now, once you get good at drawing simple shapes like circles, ovals, and straight edge shapes, you can combine them to create three-dimensional volumes like spheres, cylinders, and cubes. Just like with basic shapes, you can combine these three-dimensional solids to create any form imaginable. These basic three-dimensional volumes are the building blocks that will allow you to draw more complex subjects like landscapes, figures, and animals. So once you can draw these basic three-dimensional volumes, you can combine them and manipulate them to create more complex form. You want to start simply here too. Some of my favorite subjects to draw are things like teacups, or top hats, or milk cartons. Simple three-dimensional objects that are based in these foundational forms. A teacup is essentially a sphere that's been cut in half and hollowed out. A top hat is essentially a cylinder. A milk carton is essentially a box with another box on top that's been cut diagonally. You want to get good at drawing simple three-dimensional objects like these turned in any direction you can imagine. And from there, you can work your way up. If you're drawing the figure, arms and legs are essentially cylinders. So is each and every segment of the fingers. To draw anything, all form, no matter how complex, must be simplified into these basic three-dimensional volumes, like spheres, cylinders, and cubes, and eventually into egg shapes and cones. Once you can draw these basic three-dimensional forms, you can use them to draw anything. Next, you need to get good at communicating with line. If there's one thing that separates drawing from other practices, it is the use of line. Now, most of us understand that we can use line to create outlines, but lines can also be used to express emotion, to create tactile sensations, and to communicate depth and three-dimensionality. When learning to draw, you should learn to vary your line quality. You want to use line as a communication tool that's very similar to tone of voice. You want lines that are quiet and loud. You want lines that are calm and excited. You want to use line to communicate with your viewer. Drawings done with line alone can be incredibly powerful. You can use your line quality to make soft objects appear soft, or hard objects appear hard and angular. When drawing the human figure, you can use line quality to show where bone comes to the surface of the body, or to show where soft flesh hangs down from gravity. You can do this without shading, just by using line quality alone. And finally, we arrive at shading. In talking with students, shading seems to be the skill that people most want to learn. but they often start shading before they're ready. So before you learn to shade, I highly recommend getting good at all of the previous skills we've talked about so far. You want to start by learning how to shade simple three-dimensional objects like spheres, cylinders, and cubes. You must learn to create the illusion of dramatic light and shadow. You must learn how light operates as it falls across simple objects. You want to understand why parts of a subject are in light and what parts are left in shadow. You want to understand how cast shadows work. Once you learn how light and shadow operate on simple objects, you'll be able to shade any subject no matter how complex, even the human figure. So these are the fundamentals that every aspiring artist must learn. Once you learn these fundamentals, it will unlock every subject that you could possibly want to draw or paint. I see so many students come into my classes, sometimes they've even drawn and painted for years, who struggle, who have plateaued in their skills. And what I find in nearly every case is that they have a gap in their fundamental skill set. And once they go back and learn that skill, it unlocks everything for them. So when you're starting out, learn these basic skills now at the beginning. Yes, it will take a few months of dedicated practice, but once you understand these principles, you'll be able to draw anything. This isn't just the best way to learn to draw, it's also the quickest path toward mastery. And by the way, these fundamental skills, they're not just for beginners. I still practice these fundamental skills on a regular basis. Yes, I do a lot of figure drawing, but when I practice the exact things you've learned about in this video. So hopefully you now have a strong sense of how to learn to draw. Hopefully you understand what skills you should be practicing and what order you should practice them in. Now, my goal with this channel is to bring high quality drawing instruction to as many people as possible. But if you're looking for a more structured and immersive learning experience, visit my website, BrentEviston.com. There you can enroll in my award-winning and best-selling drawing courses in the Art and Science of Drawing series. On my website, you'll also find all kinds of free drawing resources. These online courses will guide you through the process that I just laid out in a very structured way, complete with projects and practice. If you're enjoying these drawing videos, you can support me by liking, subscribing, and sharing. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments section. Let me know what questions you have about drawing, what are you struggling with, and how can I help? As always, it's an honor and a privilege to be part of your drawing experience, and I hope to see you again.